Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Inside the C-Suite. I am here today with William Tincup and Mr. Novo Constare. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did, sir.
I did. All right, good. Novo is the CEO of IndeedFlex, and today we are going to learn all about his story. Not so much what he's doing today, but his journey, how he came up, how he ended up as CEO of IndeedFlex, and really just everything about you. We're going to probe and we are going to learn about what you did to become who you are today. Sound like a game plan?
Sounds good.
All right. Before we get started, why don't you kick us off? Introduce yourself, what you're doing today, and then we're gonna open up the waterfalls here and just start pounding you with some good questions.
Cool. Novo Constare, CEO of IndeedFlex. If you can't tell by my accent, I am from the UK, born and raised in London. Um, Father of two children, 4 and 2, who are a complete handful. Um, and yeah, IndeedFlex is part of the Indeed group of companies, and work in London, but travel very often to Austin, Texas, where our headquarters are based.
So tell us a little bit of IndeedFlex, so the audience, in case they're
Yeah.
unaware or whatever, but probably familiar with Indeed. I would question that if they aren't. In so probably they understand Indeed, but the Flex part,
Yeah.
what is that? How'd that come about?
So IndeedFlex is a product of Indeed, and it's focused on innovating the way temporary staffing happens. So we connect employers, whether it be in warehousing, hospitality, clerical, with job seekers who are looking for temporary engagements. So you could be a restaurant where your waiter's called in sick at 8 p.m., you've got busy dinner service, and all of a sudden, you're in trouble. You can go into our platform, post an assignment, offer out to the best match workers, and have someone turn up within an hour. That was the premise of what we built in London, and it was so successful that Indeed came and acquired us when we were known as Sift, and we launched in the US and been growing ever since.
Is it a mobile app as well?
Yeah, we have a mobile app for our workers and a mobile and desktop app for our employers. And the cool thing about it is temporary staffing is usually quite an opaque industry.
Right.
Workers
Yeah.
can't see all the jobs, and the end client can't see who the available workers are. What IndeedFlex is all about is trying to provide a lot of transparency to that marketplace and enable the employers, enable the workers to make the best decisions for themselves. So we aren't, as a recruiter, telling which jobs the worker can go to or which worker the client can have. We're focusing on highlighting data to both sides of the marketplace for them to make the best decisions for ourselves. We're very focused on allowing workers to book work that suits around their schedule, and giving employers that choice that they're hiring the right worker for their business.
Are there ratings in the app or otherwise? Is there ratings on both sides?
Yes, it's a little Black Mirror-esque where you can
Right.
you can rate your candidate at the end of their assignment. But
Right.
similarly, we allow the workers to rate the employer. And what that help does, it helps educate the employer on what maybe they need to improve upon, what they're really good at, and also helps the worker decide whether they think that employer is right for them moving forward.
Where or when in the future, how close are we to this being the new work?
I would say we're there already. The marketplace we're addressing has existed for decades. The world of
Right.
temporary staffing is not new. I know we have this the new sort of gig economy that we talk about, which is almost a branch of temporary staffing, but maybe more focused on much shorter term gigs and assignments. But the nature of it is still the same. You're engaging with someone for a very temporary amount of time and paying them for their services. So I think that we're in that period now. The gig economy is growing through the roof. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I know there's north of 60 million Americans today, at least, who have engaged in some form of temporary work. I think the recent cost of living crisis through the rampant increase in interest rates forced a lot of people to try and pick up extra hours and extra work to try and keep the roof over their heads and keep the food on the table. And a lot of those people migrated to platforms like ourselves or to other gig economy platforms like DoorDash or Uber.
Yeah.
We saw, not necessarily in the US, but we saw in the UK, where we had a lot of people come out of retirement. So like their pension payments weren't sufficient enough to maintain a lifestyle, and they came out of retirement to pick up this work, which it's not asking you to work every day. We're not asking for a full-time commitment from workers. We're also saying check when you're available, check what assignments suit your capability, your needs, and availability, and pick the work that's right for you.
There is no commitment. It's a when you're able to and when you want to.
Turn on and off.
Yeah,
Exactly.
turn it on and off. So, okay, so Novo, I want to get started here. I want to learn your story. Clearly,
Yeah.
you've had success in your rise to CEO of IndeedFlex, and your move and your acquisition there. So, take us back to when you were a youngster. What was going
So,
on? Not that you might not be able to remember what was going through your mind. I don't know, maybe,
You
but
wanted to be a footballer.
so actually, there's
I mean,
I got asked this.
you didn't want to do this as a career back
No,
then?
dude.
No,
Wags. No.
there's a funny answer that I gave before in the past to that question, where me and my co-founder were asked what do we want to be when we were younger, and his answer was he wanted to be a dinosaur, which is quite cool actually. Mine, I'm unsure if mine as cool, because mine wasn't that. I wanted to be a backup dancer to Michael Jackson. Like, literally, that was my thing when I was young. Yeah, I was one of those kids with the hat, the glove, the white socks, the pulled up black trousers, standing on my tippy toes.
Yeah. I don't think we've
That
ever
was
had
me.
that as an answer. It's
Can you
always
do?
been like,
Can
I have lemonade stands. He's like,
No.
let's
Can you
backup
do
dancer,
Can
Michael
you do a
Jackson.
better impression than Chris Tucker? Because
Oh,
he can
I
do
wouldn't even attempt. This is
Okay.
recorded, so no chance. I'll give you a little when we're not recording, okay?
There you go. No, that's how we're starting this episode.
100%.
We're kicking it. We're cutting this and putting it in the front.
Yeah.
100%.
To Ryan's
Um,
point, like what did you want to be? Did you ever think entrepreneurship was a part of that mix outside of the becoming a backup?
So like,
First choice.
I think I'm heavily influenced by my mother. So she was a single mother of two, raised us. She was an entrepreneur. Like, she was a pharmacist originally, like a temp herself, working for different establishments, and she temped enough to raise enough money to afford to go, own her own pharmacy. And put me and my sister through school to the degree where we actually got to go to private school. And so I guess, like, seeing her and how successful it was, and how, through financial stability, she was able to provide us the education that we got, and just the life that we had. I've always had a bit of I want to be just like that. I don't want to be dependent on someone. I want to be my own boss to a degree. And the flip side of that is, my nickname when I was, say, 7 years old or 8 years old, it was given to me by my uncle. He used to call me Money Man, because I guess, like, I was so, like, enamored with, like, independence. I knew that money gave you that. So, like, I was always trying to find ways to make money. So I was never, like I said, I was never proactive enough to have the lemonade stand when I was that young. But I'd always known that I was busy dancing to the Bad album. But, like, I always knew that I want to make money. I want to be my own boss, and therefore I need to go build something. And obviously I did, my mother is Nigerian. There's no way I'm going out venturing to do whatever. I'm going to do my studies. I'm going to do maths. And all those sort of things.
100%.
So, I went through school, got decent grades, went to University of Bristol, which is in the west of England, did philosophy and economics. She wasn't too keen on philosophy, but I think it was super important to understand the art of debate and contextualizing, information,
100%.
not just numbers. But in the school I went to before going to university was a very good school, and they'd have these career fairs. And in these career fairs, they would, they'd have all these Fortune 500 companies, like the investment banks, the Unilevers of the world, and whatnot. And they'd tell you all these careers of what you can do. You can do this, be an investment banker, be this. And at that time, investment banking was the thing. Now it's like it's tech, or specifically AI. But back then it was investment banking. That's the path you want to go on, and that's how you make loads of money, and that's how you grow, blah, blah. So obviously I was doing economics to go on that path. But, as I was speaking to sort of the JP Morgan associates at the time, at the age of 16, 17, they were explaining their lifestyle, and it sounded tough. Like, M&A
Gotta get up at
working,
4.
I want to do this
yeah,
for a living.
working to 3 a.m., 4 a.m. on deals that never happen. Like I hate the concept of throwaway work and like work for the sake of work and
Yep.
FaceTime and unnecessary deadlines.
It
And so
toughens
like
you up.
it toughens you up, but I always say to people like you don't like people look at me and think, oh no, you work so hard. I think fundamentally underneath my core, I'm a lazy person. So like
Bill Gates, I think, once said the developers he hires are the laziest people because they're going to find the shortcut.
yes.
Something to that.
I use
Paraphrasing.
that Bill Gates quote as well to excuse my behavior.
To justify.
Yeah.
But I like finance was a thing, and I knew I wanted to get into finance. But my plan was I want to do finance for a while, build up some savings, and then go do something entrepreneurial. Like that was my plan. Like I had like a 10-year plan. I'd do my degree, I'll go get an investment banking job, I'll get some good savings, and then that would give me the opportunity to go and try and do something more entrepreneurial. Sorry?
Were you
Ryan,
ever...
tell us about your 10-year plan. I'd love to hear it. Because I never had one. So I'm automatically jealous.
I know one language. I'm American. I have no 10-year plan. How about that? Were you ever afraid, though, when you made that decision to go in, say, 10 years, investment banking, get some savings? Were you ever afraid, like I'm going to crush it, right? You've got X amount of money in the bank. Why would I ever leave this to do this? I'm going to keep going. Were you ever afraid you were never going to get to that next
Well, I'm
step?
not sure he got to investment banking. He hasn't told us that he made it there yet.
It doesn't sound like it did.
I'm fearing that there's a deviation from the plan.
So wait, there's more. So I didn't quite go into investment banking. And as I said, I'm a fundamentally lazy person.
You could have told me this before I asked the question.
But the other aspect was I was quite a keen poker player.
Oh, I love this.
All right, let's go.
I love this. Not that you have a gambling problem. That's not, we're not saying that. I would never say that.
However, not a skill.
You're good at Texas Hold'em, or are you?
Yeah, Texas Hold'em. Yeah. So I played Texas Hold'em, high stakes cash poker. Like I built up my bankroll from free rolls to multi-table to single table tournaments, multi-table tournaments to cash, and I put myself through university utilizing that.
Wow.
And then I went too high in the stakes, lost all my money, and I was like, probably I'll just play for fun now. Focus and then focus on the right thing. But I do have a sense for risk analysis, and I am risk loving to a degree. So I did go into finance, but not as like an M&A advisor or corporate advisor, as a lot of people do. I went into trading. So I became a trader in derivatives. So originally it was fixed income, so European bonds, government interest rates, and things like that. And then very quickly it translated into trade everything.
Right. Did you work for a big brokerage firm?
No, it was a niche one. They're headquartered in Chicago, but we were part of the London desk. And to be honest, I loved that job. Like that job, it gave me a great amount of independence. It paid well. But to Ryan's question, do I ever know if I would have ever gone to it? I think because I went into trading, that was never in danger. Because with trading, I kind of, rightly or wrongly, I kind of felt that the skill set I was building up wasn't that transferable. Right? I was very good in trading numbers on a screen, buying and selling, and it's a very specific thing you hone. Right. Yes, you get some understanding of risk analysis and digesting macroeconomic news and technical analysis, but those things are usually quite useful for trading and not necessarily going to translate to leadership and management and all that sort of stuff.
Have you already kind of thought about AI in the world that you used to be in? And what AI can do or will do or it is doing?
Exactly. So when I started, the tool of trade we were given a certain amount of capital and we could allocate it into the market. Right. And there was this sort of thing called freehand trading where you see the price, you click the price, you have an edge, you make money and all those sort of things. Around when I started, which was around 2010, the bots were taking over. and there was a lot more black box trading.
Yep.
And we ourselves, our firm, invested heavily in it. And very
Oh,
quickly, the human element that we had as traders
didn't need it.
eroded over time.
Right.
Yes, we were still needed as sort of like the final decision point, but it became a lot more gray box
Yep.
and veered into black box versus execution trading. So you
That's
could
right.
see already where it was heading. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, it like in the short time I did do trading, it shifted aggressively.
Wow. Well, we're
Um,
seeing the same thing in recruiting. You know,
yes.
right now is that
Mhm.
it's taking over certain parts, and you can see recruiters being really freaked out about it taking over some of the things that they once did. So I can imagine going through that transition. That like, okay, I'm doing this bit, I'm pretty good at it. I'm doing this bit, and all of a sudden technology is enabling, it's helping, but it's also taking some of the stuff that probably even made the job enjoyable
Yes.
away from you.
100%. And the one thing I say is with like say trading, I can see AI taking over entirely and
Oh,
just
100%.
eliminating the
Mhm.
job. When it
Great.
comes to things like recruitment, I think it evolves the role of the recruiter.
Me too.
You know, right now recruiters are holding on to the administrative stuff of things. Like, you
Yep.
know, I manage this, I do that, and actually sort of saying, let go of that. And
Okay.
actually it
Enter.
allows you to spend more time on the things that AI cannot do. I think Bullhorn did the. I'm sorry if I can't name drop, but they did this survey like a year and a bit ago, and it talked about like temporary workers who are working on assignment, and it said that even though they're on a long-term job, so they're working at an employer for like 3 months, you name it, they would still like to hear from their original recruiter at least once a week.
Yeah.
Like, and so like that human, and right now recruiters they can't afford to contact all the candidates they have right now
Nope.
once
Right.
a week because they're busy doing all the admin stuff and going on.
Right.
And for me, it's all saying, well, actually, that's what they really want.
That's the
That's how you build
juice.
staying power. That's how
Yep.
you get them to come back to you when they want their next job or their next assignment.
Exactly.
And so like with IndeedFlex, we're focused on like eliminating all the pieces
Right.
where AI can really have ownership of it and retaining the relationship piece more. And so like I keep telling my team, like we want to we want to eliminate the recruiter and turn you into career counselors and support for workers and things like that.
So,
And by removing all the admin stuff, you can scale yourself up to be able to speak to way more candidates post the hire than you could today.
so Ryan, what I've got so far: professional gambler, a
Mhm.
professional trader, right?
Wow.
So, what
There's a lot of
skill?
vices going on here. Did Indeed
No,
run a
Yes,
background
yes.
check
actually,
on you? Like, did you go
yeah,
through a background check? I'm kind of
eh,
like,
yeah. Recruit Holdings does a really, really thorough job.
They do. They very,
Don't
very
worry,
much
don't
do.
worry. I'm not gonna say it's a proctology exam. However,
so
eh,
when you go to HR tech, can you walk past the roulette tables without dropping chips down? Like, can
no,
you get
roulette.
to the expo hall?
Roulette's the numbers aren't in
I
your favor in roulette. No,
I've been to Vegas 7 times in my life, and I've gone to a roulette table once.
That's more than me. I
I
can't
no.
do it.
I only
I
play
sweat at a
poker
table.
and blackjack because
Yeah, yeah,
blackjack can
yeah.
be 50-50 if you play it perfectly or
Okay,
close
so
to it.
first of all, I'm gonna tell you my blackjack story really quickly, and it'll drive you crazy. The logic of it will drive you insane. I hold on 12, so I never
Okay.
bust. So if I get a 6 and a 7, I stay.
Yeah, so for the
I'm
people watching on
I'm
video, they
I'm
see the
bank
lasers coming out of his eyes right now.
I I'm betting on either I'm going to have a better number or the banker or the dealer is going to bust. And it drives when I'm at a table, it drives
Yes.
everyone else insane. Like, we're at the end of the deck, and people probably already had kind of some type of system of understanding where they were at in the deck, and I could clearly get a card that would get me up into the high teens and maybe 20s. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's not my bet. I'm playing the dealer. And man, I have had people throw their chairs down. I've had people like not get physical with me because casinos are pretty well secured, but
Yeah.
like they hate that strategy. But I've almost always won with that strategy, and it
I mean,
drives
if you're
people.
winning, the
That's
game's
all
the
I care
game,
about.
right? Yeah.
I'm not. I'm not. I don't. I'm not. Their bank is their bank, not my bank. I'm just playing that person, and it drives every time I do this because I do it in Vegas when I'll go and put down a couple $100 and do it, and it drives people crazy. So now at this point, after doing it for 15, 20 years, I'm just now into making them crazy. So now it's just a bit.
You don't pay $150 basically just to upset a random stranger.
Exactly. I'll go get in the first chair. I'll wait till the first chair is available just to frustrate the rest of the table. So anyhow, I did have a question really quickly with
Yeah.
the two things that you've told us so far. What were the skills that made you successful? What skill in poker? What skill in trading?
I would say I'm quite decisive. So I'm not afraid to fail.
Right.
Ultimately.
So in
So
poker,
like,
you didn't question yourself. You were like,
it's so like for me, those games are both calculated risks.
right,
Obviously, they are gambling to a degree, but there's calculated risk involved.
right,
But there is risk. There's no elimination of that. And I kind of apply that same mindset to life. Like I know roughly the odds of something, and I also back my own skill set to increase the chance of those odds playing in my favor.
right.
So I'm quite decisive in my decision making. I'm comfortable operating in the gray. And obviously that lends well to an entrepreneurial mindset. Like if you're afraid to fail as an entrepreneur, if
Yeah.
you're someone who needs all the numbers and all the data before you act, and then you're sort of like,
Get a job.
paralysis through analysis,
Yeah.
you won't be successful from an entrepreneurial perspective. So I think those have helped me quite well. And I think it's also helped me almost be a calming factor for the people I've managed or the company I've led, because they see that I'm comfortable with failure.
Right.
And therefore sort of
If
saying,
you're calm, they become calm.
yes, and it hopefully fosters an environment where people do try things, they're willing to learn, but at the same time understand that it is all a calculated risk.
Right.
But like, I think that skill set's probably the thing that's helped me. That and the ability to take in a lot of information from multiple areas and digest it to enable a decision quite quickly.
Well, it's interesting in both cases. You dealt with losses, even if it was just a hand. You dealt with loss. You did a bid. You thought you had it. You didn't. You lost. Most people would languish in them for the next four hands. They'd still be thinking about that hand that happened 5-6 hands ago, and like, why did I do that? I had pocket jacks. Why did I do that? This, that, and the other. They're still thinking about that. Whereas, I believe what you're saying is you've already moved on.
Yep. On to the next one. It's all part of the game, right? You're not going to win every hand. You're not going to win every trade.
Right.
It's an element of like over time, the variance would go your way because you're applying a strategy that you have confidence in. And that's essentially how poker people make a career. It's how traders make a career. They have a strategy that they know over time wins. And so like each incremental moment is almost irrelevant. It's like, people in the stock market buy it and walk away.
Right.
You're like trying to pick the bottom, just it's going to go up over the long run. And it's the same concept.
Wow.
So take us through the lead up to Sift.
Yeah.
What's the story behind Sift? And obviously you had success there, but maybe talk about what's the lead up story there, the impetus of Sift, the why. What are some failures there before you hit it big, before you history struck success?
So I went into trading and I absolutely loved my job. I did it for 6 years. Well, the second company I joined was for 6 years, and the company before that was for 2 years. But during that time, as I said, I didn't feel I had very transferable skill sets. I was like, if this doesn't play out, what am I going to do after this? And ultimately, my end goal is to do something entrepreneurial. So throughout that time, there were a couple of other ventures that I did. One was in property, one was in like e-commerce almost, and they didn't play out. But I was always looking for something. And I don't know if you remember, around like sort of like 2013, 2014 period, Uber was beginning to take off, and everything was about apps. Everyone had an idea for an app. And a friend of mine who I used to live with, we were meeting 2014 December time, catch up for Christmas. It was like Christmas lunch and drinks. And he just left his previous startup that he was working at, which was an e-learning company, e-learning software company. And he'd mentioned he had this idea, which turned out to be Sift, around booking workers via an app. And the combination became twofold. The story we tell, which is also true, but the one we tell is a bit more,
tell us the one you don't tell.
I'll tell that one too. The story we tell is like he was a temporary worker in the past during university days in Cardiff, Wales, but he had a car. And because he had a car and because the industry was opaque, the recruiter would decide what job he went to. And they would always make him go to the job far away. Because you have a car,
Because he had a
you go to a
car.
job far away. His friends didn't have a car, same agency. They got to go to the nice cushy job at the Millennium Stadium just down the road. But he was forced to go to the one far away whilst his flatmates were getting the better opportunity. And that made him disgruntled. So he would either not turn up, or if he did turn up, he wouldn't be very motivated because he didn't get to choose. He knew there was other opportunities he didn't have access to. And as apps were taking off at that time and creating transparency through a creative marketplace format, we have ratings and good visibility. It's like, why isn't this happening in temporary staffing? So like that had been something that had been culminating in his mind even like a year or so earlier when we were living together. But obviously he was at his job and never really pushed through with it. But then there was like a aha moment, which went beyond just that choose where and when you work. But a friend of his was a bar manager, and they were out one night, and the bar manager had an awful night because the bartenders who needed to support him didn't turn up. And so the manager was behind the bar the entire night on a Saturday having an absolute meh. They get home and like they're just talking about this, what's happened, effing and bleeding about what a rubbish night it was. And he just has an epiphany. Wouldn't it be cool if you could just book someone last minute like an Uber? And marrying that with his own experience, it became really clear that there's value we can add to both sides here, leveraging technology for speed, leveraging technology for transparency, and basically creating better outcomes for both sides of the marketplace. And he was telling me about this idea during our Christmas lunch. And at first I was like, finally, an app that looks like it's going to be good. Like no one had launched at that time, at least so we thought. And we're like, finally, like a good idea for an app, because everyone had random ideas for apps. So when they're really particular niche problem, this is a huge existing market, and you're going to go innovate it and dramatically change the way it operates, and hopefully provide better outcomes for both sides. And initially, me and my friends who were also there, were like, we want to invest in that idea. And Jack Beeman, who's the original CEO and my co-founder and friend, were like, bring us a business plan. But he's a salesy, big thinker, not too detailed person. And he came out with a business plan, which I still have to this day, because every now and then I parade it out for a bit of laughs. And literally,
we have screen sharing options.
like 3 pages. 3 pages. There's
I wouldn't do nothing like that. But like, we basically will say, no, we're out. Like, it needs a little bit more meat on the bones, but like, yeah, we're not going to invest. And then I proceed to have probably my worst week ever in trading. And so, like, as you mentioned, like, if I was in investment banking, whatever, investment banking, you don't get moments like that, realistically. You have moments where you work hard, but you don't have moments where you're just like, wow, I just lost a lot of money. And the problem with losing a lot of money in December is that your bonus period is calculated at the end of December. So, the last 11 months,
you've already been counting on it. You've already spent it, probably.
Almost don't need to have happened.
Yeah.
And like, so it was a very jarring, emotional moment.
That's why a lot of people play it safe in December.
Exactly. Not me, poker player.
No.
But that was a good moment to be like, dude, you've been looking for something. You've had 2 other things that haven't worked out, and you think this can be big. You think you can go build something and impact millions of people's lives in a positive way. And so I was like, yeah, okay, why don't I do this? I called Jack back up. I was like, okay, Jack, I'm not going to invest. I'm going to come in with you 50-50 and we're going to go build this thing. Because I was like the more operational, more detailed numbers person who can build the financial plan and all those sort of things. It was like marry our skill sets together, and we're pretty one good founder. So it was always like Jack and Novo, in Novo and Jack. It was always like we're a twosome, yin and yang. And so that's how we started off. And literally 2 weeks later, we was go. There was a bridge because it was Christmas and New Year's, but January 5th, incorporated the company. Originally it was called Recruit Me, but then we wanted a name that was could be a pronoun, a noun, a verb. You're Ubering, you're an Uber. We came up with sifting and all that sort of stuff. And It came about because we were speaking to like a hiring HR manager for a large restaurant chain. And she mentioned one time how she got 10,000 applications for a job. And she had to sift through all these applications. We're like, ooh, thank you. And then we came up with Sift, and like very quickly, it evolved from being Uber for staffing to like, actually, we want to be more like Tinder. We want to understand, all about our work and all about our customers to make sure they're really the right match for each other, as opposed to just, you just get whoever when the Uber driver, you don't select, you just get whoever turns up, who accepts. And we're like, that's not going to work for hospitality staff. And we have to make sure that it's the right match. We were operating in high-end restaurants, low-end restaurants, stadiums, and not all workers can work in all those environments. So like, that's how it started. We raised, family and friends round like very, very quickly. So we incorporated April. We raised our first bit of money by March. Had a prototype built out, and we did this whole fake it till you make it thing. No background in recruitment, no background in engineering or tech, no background in working hospitality. We're just two guys with an idea and hope. And so we're like, okay, how are we going to convince investors to give us money? And so we went on a fake it till you make it. So like, okay, we have no background in these sectors. So we built out this like ridiculous prospectus to show how much we investigated and dug deep into the market analysis. Like it was ridiculous, but it was like 50 odd pages. McKinsey would be proud. To just show like we know what we're doing, and we've looked at everything out, every avenue, and this is why we want to do it. We don't have a product because we're not engineers. So what do? We spent like £10,000 on a designer to build a prototype. And it was the most, we didn't understand the concept of MVP. It was the most high fidelity prototype you'll ever find. Like all the feature set. It didn't have any code behind it, but it had all the screens. So someone clicking around would feel like it was a real app. And so we'd go to investors with this prospectus, and we'd go with this click-through app. It's like, okay, you almost feels like you got the product. But we have no traction. We take that prototype to a bunch of restaurants and bars and caterers and ask them, what do you think about this concept? Would you be willing to sign a letter of intent for when we launch to say that when we launch, you'd use us? It's no cost to them, right? It's just saying, yeah, sure. And we had no team. So we went and convinced a bunch of people in the space to say, in this time frame, we're going to raise money and launch and start our business. Will you join us when we get the money? And they go, yeah, like, can we put you on our deck? Cool. So we put all these people on our deck who weren't our employees. We had this prototype, which wasn't a product, but looked like one.
Great.
So this is where the poker comes in.
This is so great.
This is the skill set we're talking about.
This is a bluff. All right.
It literally was. These are the letters. Here's our traction. Here are all the customers who said they're going to use us. Maybe, who knows? I think by now we've probably got through about 80% of those customers using us at some point. So it wasn't a lie, but like they're laser intense. And so we had the team, we had the product, we had traction, give us money. And we were able to do that relatively successfully. And we launched a product like sort of 7-8 months later. We truly knew nothing about development. So we couldn't outsource it. We had to make sure we got very expensive people in-house to get closer to it, to try and understand it more, which meant that we ran out of money very quickly. So we had to raise again, which wasn't planned. But the second time we raised, funny enough, the people in my company that I was still working at, by the way, made up the majority of that round, which is a great endorsement, essentially. Because then when we got to VCs, we're like, yeah, the people who I work with actually invested. So they back me. They know me very well. So if they're willing to back me with their own cash, and they're backing this enterprise, they know me and Jack. It gives gives investors confidence, right? That if people are willing to back you to the hilt like that, your boss who you currently work for and basically building this thing to leave is willing to back you. Fair enough.
They should trust.
They should trust us.
Well, let's dig into that for a moment. So I think a lot of people that listen to this show have aspirations to be where you are, right? And have that success. When you did your friends and family round, how do you approach that? How do you go to friends and family and say, look, I want to take your retirement money. I want to take your savings. I want to put it into my idea because I'm amazing. How do you do that? And how do you process that responsibility?
So I incorrectly called it friends and family because actually not a single family member invested. I didn't want. I didn't
They're
ask. We
like,
didn't
we
ask
saw
any
you as
family.
a
You didn't want
7-year-old.
that. You didn't want that pressure. That's a different type of pressure right there.
Yeah.
100%. Like
Yeah,
betting with your own money, your own losses, you can live with that. Someone else's
right.
is a whole different ballgame.
100%.
And friends, I would say the people we call friends now who invested weren't as close back
Right,
then. They were like
right,
friends of friends
Right.
right.
who
Okay.
had money and backed
Okay.
us. So they're like angel investors who are friends of our friends, and they've
Right.
evolved to become quite good friends over
Oh
time.
yeah, they're
Over the
great
last
friends
night,
now.
they're great
Yeah.
now,
Yeah,
Good
especially
friends
they
now.
like us a lot.
100%.
So yeah, so when we came with them, that's why we had to fake it when we make it, like because they weren't just
Right.
like it wasn't like my
Yeah.
mum saying, "Okay, son, I'm going to support you." These are actual angel investors who are looking for a return on their capital and wanted to make sure they're investing something that could yield that output.
Right.
So
Right.
that's why the fake to make it came. And then we launched. We got really good traction early doors. Customers loved the fact they could choose who they wanted to hire, and like our springboard to success was we got to do the after party of the Star Wars premiere in London. Our staff was one of the first events, and it wasn't just the after party; it was the VIP area of it.
Oh, sweet.
Ooh.
And the reason they did that is because on our platform you could literally see who you were hiring. You know, with a temporary staffing company, you got a VIP event. They say, oh, it's going to cost you double per hour per worker. All they do is send the same workers and tell them to work harder.
Gotcha.
Whereas, you know, through us, we say pay more, you'll get a high quality worker, and they could see that and they trusted it. And then from then on, we kept doing all these super high profile events, and that was like the springboard to our success. And there are some stories I could tell you about some VIP events we did, which
Yeah.
off camera are super
Off camera.
interesting and very funny,
100%.
involving celebrities, managers, and their wives and our workers.
100%.
Not
Not right now. Not right now.
right now.
You're still living in London. Don't do this.
Exactly.
Don't go down this path.
But and then we went down. And then we started speaking to VCs,
Right.
and the VC game was very interesting. We went out to VCs for 2-3 months, and we just got no's. This is 2016 February.
Did you do it in London, or
In
did you come to
London.
the US?
For the first time, London.
UK is so hard for SaaS software. It's
It
gotten
is.
better, but at the time you were doing it, it was almost impossible because they just, I don't know if it's risk tolerance or just what they were accustomed to investing in, manufacturing, you know, and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But like I had a ton of friends in the UK that would try to raise money, and eventually they'd all come to the US and come this way, go out to San Francisco or go to New York. A lot of money in New York as well. And it wasn't the same conversations. It was a different conversation. But I think London's move, I mean, I think it's better than it was when you were raising.
It
but
has
still
improved
fairly
quite
conservative.
a lot. Yeah. And like the VC who came in early doors, pro founders, they're probably one of the first who start moving early, and like they're great. Shout out to Rogan. It's a very different game. Like when we eventually went out to the US to try and raise, the conversations you have are far more bullish. Don't necessarily always turn out to be a check, but like, but definitely
they're with you. They're stepping with you. It's like they're gonna make money for 4 years. Got it. You know, they're like at least intellectually they're with you on a model that won't be profitable might not ever be profitable. Like they're with you. Now they might not write a check, but they're with you on the conversation. Before we wrap, last question I have is the acquisition of what you can tell us. How did it start, and what was like the hardest part of the acquisition?
So I don't know how much I can divulge because Recruit Holdings.
Oh yeah, no. Don't do anything. Don't do anything. You know.
So I will share as much as I can without getting in trouble. So we'd raised that round with pro founders in 2016 for sort of 2.3 million, and we got pretty good at raising from that point onwards. We raised another round a year and a bit later through Creandum, and Creandum is one of the leading sort of Series A, Series B funds in Europe, backing Spotify, Klarna, you name it. Like they're brilliant. And then we were raising again, even though not intentionally, but we did like some sort of like speed pitching event organized by Numis Bank or Numis Investments. And we presented this new deal that we'd won with a customer because we'd built essentially this SaaS tool that basically made us a SaaS-enabled marketplace and gave us full ownership of this client's entire temporary staffing spend. with like 10 million pounds a year, which no one had ever done in this space before, especially as quick as we did it. And basically investors all perked up, was like, oh wow, there's actually something here. And off the back of that event, we ended up getting quite a competitive term sheet process, which we hadn't planned. And we ended up signing a term sheet with an investor. And it was the third time they tried to invest in us. And so like the data room was actually called Third Time's a Charm. And it wasn't, because it actually didn't happen in the end. But we signed this term sheet and we're doing all the due diligence, and it's December 2018. And then our head of product at the time gets an email from someone in Corp Dev at Indeed saying we're like a demo of the product. And we thought that they were just going to try and steal our ideas and whatnot, because
100%.
we'd had a very large traditional staffing company do the same thing a few years earlier and launch a product literally 2 months after we spoke to them. Won't name names, but think of large staffing companies that have launched similar platforms in the past.
I already know the one you're talking about. So yes.
But because we had the term sheet and we're feeling pretty good about ourselves, growth was good. We're like, yeah, give them a demo and send them our deck as well. Let's see what they think. And then the first week of January, they want to meet. And we're like, okay, wow. So we're meeting Corp Dev and head of Corp Dev. And then the following week, they're like, oh, the CEO of Indeed wants to meet you the next week. And at the time, that was Deco, who's now the CEO of Holdings. And he comes to meet us on his way back from Davos. And we're articulating our vision, and we're talking about how we're job seeker first, how we want to empower the work with control and choice and democratize access to work, and all these things that we didn't know Recruit Holdings was saying the exact same thing. We literally didn't know. We'd spent zero time looking into who Recruit Holdings was and looking into Indeed was. As far as we're concerned, Indeed was just this job board that we utilized, and we didn't really grasp just how big they were, how big Recruit was. And it was only when they said they wanted to invest, but we already signed the term sheet and we said we can't get you in the round for the equity you wanted. Then quickly evolved into discussions around acquisition. We're like, ooh, this we can entertain. And then we flew over to Austin to meet the old leadership team. Chris Hyams is now CEO. And we met them all and we're just like, these people are awesome. But we're in danger of saying no to a term sheet and money that's coming in probably in about a couple of weeks' time. This is February now, so we're deep past into due diligence, right? And if we say no to this term sheet now, go down the acquisition route and it fails, we're in trouble.
Yeah. Because
we're going back to the VC market, having been rejected by a potential acquirer. And it just, no matter what we're saying, it just taints everything.
Right.
But the trust we had in Recruit Holdings, in Indeed at the time, as having met them, was super high. And true to their word, they played it through. They were straight down the line, even when throughout the process, and I don't know if I should say this, but throughout the process, there's a period where our numbers went down, and we fully thought they'd come back and put a haircut.
Right.
And would have been well within their right. Didn't happen.
No.
And then during that period, that's when my gray hair started. Because me and Jack, not that we love PR, but we did a lot of PR. If you Google Sift, you Google our name, we were in every outlet at the BBC. We had very stupidly told our employees, who were all shareholders at the time, that we had this offer. And so the pressure of making sure that deal went through went up 10x. Because not only was it just like survival of the company, it was also now we've set these expectations for everyone else.
You're thinking about what Bentley they're going to buy.
Literally. So it was like, why did we tell anyone?
Do I want a white Bentley? Do I want 3 Bentleys? I don't know. Let me get one of each color. Yeah.
That was the excitement behind it all.
Yeah, it was. We were naive, and do it again, it would never tell a soul, basically. It'd literally just be me and Jack and like the finance, whoever's leading finance at the time, just like only we know. And so we joined Indeed, and they've just basically supercharged us. They've given us all the autonomy that we need. We've leveraged and integrated where it makes sense. One of the best moments was literally, we got acquired May 1st or May 31st, 2019. Guess what happened 8 months later? hospitality shut down. We
That's right.
lost 95% of our revenue overnight. And Indeed is really people first. And they just said, okay,
Yep.
you don't have to fire people. You can leverage the furlough programs, retain your team, go take advantage of the chaos. And we pivoted very
Wow.
aggressively with all our existing workers. And we put them into retail, delivery, warehouse, and logistics. And so, like, the awesome thing was not only do we get to help our own employees, we got to put all these hospitality workers into jobs in these large
Excellent.
retailers and large who needed work there and then. And not only were we able to give them we were able to give our temporary workers furlough. I think we were probably the only staffing company in the UK that gave temporary workers furlough access to the level that we did.
Wow.
And that was all because of being backed by Indeed. Um,
So your
and
vision
then,
truly came
Drops
full
mic,
circle.
walks off
yeah.
stage. Novo, first of all, we could talk to you forever, but I know you've got stuff to do, like work and stuff like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So, but thank you so much for coming on the show, man. Just
No
I love
problem at all.
your energy, positivity, and the story was remarkable.